The United Kingdom is a beautiful country and full of lovely people who are happy and outward looking to welcome the stranger. But unfortunately there's a great stain on our nation, and that is the stain of detention centres up and down our land. In particular, we're going to focus today on one detention centre called Dungavel, which is situated not far from our studios in Moss End, unbeknownst to many of the local populations. So delighted to welcome today from Justice and Peace, Margaret Donnelly and Francis Gallagher. So welcome to Moss End. So obviously there's a kind of good mix between you both here. Margaret, yourself, you've been involved for years with Justice and Peace and Dungavel Detention Centre, and yourself, Francis, are fairly new to Justice and Peace. So Margaret, maybe start with yourself. What have you seen over the last few years in terms of the situation in Dungavel? How has it changed? Has it got worse?
I think the outward look of the centre has become worse. When it opened almost 20 years ago, when we went up, we don't say we're protesting, we say it's a gathering. We could see people out on the grass playing football, sitting on the walls. And over the years, they've added barriers around the place and huge rolls of barbed wire around the top of the fence, and part when vehicles arrive they have to drive into and the gate's locked behind them, and then the inside gate is opened. So the look of the place is worse, but there are fewer people detained now than when it first opened. It was opened and it could hold nearly 300 people. Seldom now are there even 100 people. So from that point of view, I think it's improved.
And of course it was your first visit, Francis, just recently. So what was that kind of experience?
Absolutely, it was the first visit inside Dungavel. Margaret and I were invited in. We took Christmas cards at Christmas time for all the people who are detained inside Dungavel, but also for the staff as well. So I've been involved with Justice and Peace now for 3 years, but I have been going to the protests that Margaret talks about for those 3 years, but this was my first experience of actually being inside. Both myself and Margaret had recently written a blog about how we felt around that, and again you can see the difference because Margaret has been there and inside before a few times, so she took it more in her stride, but I certainly going inside felt very apprehensive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people in the general population, there's a general apathy. There's also maybe a general feeling from people that when we look at things like Dungavel and we see the security there, and you have this kind of dehumanising tag on people, the refugees, the asylum seekers. And I think some people in the general population just assume that the government's doing this for the nation's security or otherwise. What would you say to that? Would you say that it's a security purpose? Why are people in Dungavel?
Well, it's certainly not for people's safety, because the people who are locked in detention centres are not criminals. Everyone can claim asylum or refugee status. I try to say to people, when my family first arrived in Scotland, they weren't terribly welcomed, but they came to Scotland not for love of Scotland. They came because they wanted a better life for their family, and they thought they would get it here just the same as these families are doing. So it's nothing to do locking people up with security. It's more to do with government policy.
So you know, why is it that there's such a great apathy out there about it? Obviously the Justice and Peace are doing great things just now to try and promote that, and you're seeing the numbers there are turning out, and different groups as well are turning out to support and you know, these gatherings which you have. Personally, I was on one such gathering covering the event. I think it was 2 years ago now, and what really surprised me was how much they tried to drown out the sound by some different tactics. You know, they were cutting the grass at that time and very close to where we were speaking. And it just seemed, you know, they were trying to put people off being there. What's the fear of people knowing about Dungavel? What do you think, Francis?
That's right. I think I'm not ever sure exactly how much people are aware that Dungavel exists, or in fact the detention centres in England as well. I certainly can admit that I didn't know of the existence of Dungavel. I didn't know that people were basically sent to prison in this country, you know, when they haven't had a trial, they haven't seen a jury or a judge, or even had a sheriff of any description just look at their case. I didn't know that that went on, and it goes on in our name because this is what the government does. And I think that's part of our campaign, is to try and make people aware that Dungavel and other places in England exist, and that really there is a better way of dealing with this. Community alternatives have been piloted in other countries and work really, really well now that they've been rolled out. So why can they not happen in the UK? It costs an awful lot, millions and millions of pounds every year to keep these institutions, the whole estate of institutions, to keep them going. And I feel I think everyone involved with Justice and Peace feels that that is certainly money that could be better spent. That's just one aspect of it. Obviously the other aspect that we focus on is the justice aspect of it. You know, it's not right that our faith tells us that you have to welcome the stranger, and yet that's not what happens in this country. So it's really something that we feel we have to stand up and campaign against.
And from your experience over the last, was it 30 years being involved? 20 years being involved. What's the sort of demographic and the age range of people in Dungavel? Is it families? Is it young people, older people?
When it first opened, there was lots of families. If people can remember back to when the Glasgow girls were campaigning, they started their campaign because one of their classmates disappeared from the school. So families were in, and so there's young people. I think there likely weren't too many folk the age I am now. But I would have said it's mostly single men, because if a family, wherever they are in the world, decide that they have to raise the money to save, as they would see it, someone in their family, they will pick a young man. So that was sort of, I would say, between 20 and 35, something in that order, that were mostly detained. But I think what people don't realise, Britain is the only country in Europe that has indefinite detention. I don't know, I think now there's not people detained for 4 or 5 years, but at the beginning people were detained for years. And also, if it was decided that they had no legitimate claim to be in this country, often the government, because of the situation in their homeland, they couldn't be sent back. So here were people in detention who, given maybe different circumstances, would have been deported, but the government say it's not safe for them to go home. And so they're either kept in detention or were released into the community but denied support. So in fact, maybe they were better off in detention. They had somewhere warm to sleep and got food. I mean, the whole situation was crazy. And although the latest statistics show that not too many people are detained over a year, there still are. The whole system is crazy. As Francis said, they've piloted in some parts of England where pregnant women or women with children, note it's women with children, and people with mental health issues were in the community being monitored. If we can do that in pilots, that can be extended to everyone in detention. And of course, the other thing about Dungavel is we have a government in Scotland, but they have no control over Dungavel. It's a reserved matter. I mean, MPs, MSPs have tried to raise it in Parliament, but they can't get answers.
Yeah, I think Linda Fabiaba is one of the ones who was quite prominent in the campaigns.
Yes, Linda's been involved from the very beginning. She's been really supportive. And she's actually applied for permission to go in, because that Dungavel used to be in her constituency. So she said, these people are my constituents. But she wasn't allowed in.
That's tragic. Obviously, Francis, we're looking now at a stage where we're raising awareness of Dungavel. We realise it's a reserved matter. We can't really affect things, but what can we do to try and initiate that change?
As Margaret says, it's a devolved matter, but you can speak to your MP, and we would really encourage you to do that. Either email them or pick up the phone their office, speak to their, someone there and leave a message. And ask them, just share your concerns with your MP and let them know. I think the more they realise that people are concerned about these things, obviously, then the more they can start to begin to tackle them and help in that way. But also what people can do as well is they can support the many agencies and organisations that are working on this issue. People like Scottish Detainee Visitors, they go into Dungavel and actually visit with people and try to help them make sure they have everything that they need. The Scottish Refugee Council are also a great organisation who help people out in this situation, as are the Refugee Survival Trust as well. And quite recently the Catholic Church has given £10,000 to the Refugee Survival Trust in order to help them to support people who are trying to actually get about. Remember, these are people who have no recourse to funds. So even getting to their doctor's appointments, their lawyer's appointments to do with their case, it's very difficult for them. So this money will go towards helping them get about, give them a bus pass for 10 weeks. So there's all these sort of things, and the Catholic Church are there trying to do what we can to raise awareness of this issue and to help as best we can. As we say, it's not really how we expect our country to be treating people who are coming here seeking sanctuary.
Exactly. I think every single Catholic in Scotland should be aware, consciously aware of this issue, because it strikes at the very heart of the gospel. This is basically a fundamental level of human dignity being mistreated in our doorsteps. So I think it's really important to raise awareness. So thanks, you both, for coming through here today to Moss End, the distant land of Moss End for yourself, down in the coast, but you got here anyway. No worries. So thanks for coming in, and wish you all the best with your campaigns of awareness, and hopefully one day we'll see the end of Dungavel. So thank you all for coming in and watching today. We will find all the links and other items below regarding Dungavel, other groups involved, agencies, Justice and Peace, where you can help out, and maybe hopefully one day we'll see an end to the scourge of detention centres in the United Kingdom. Thanks very much.